For me to review this game, I have to set a few ground rules. Never played Borderlands 1 because I felt it was already too late when I became a fan of the franchise. I became a fan when I played Borderlands 2 because of Handsome Jack. Now, it needs to be said that Handsome Jack is an anomaly. I don't think the devs can write a better villain. Handsome Jack was just lightning in a bottle. I absolutely love Borderlands 3, even more than 2 in the gameplay department, but it fell short on the villain side, on the story side. With all of that being said, Borderlands 4 improves the formula of every game except for the anomaly. Almost everything the players asked for was improved from the previous games. I will not be comparing the games, but looking at the good and bad implementations the game brought. So let's review Borderlands 4. The game can be enjoyed by people that have never played Borderlands, but the fans will definitely get a surprise in fan service. Your Vault Hunter is captured by the Timekeeper and you manage to escape. You come across a few characters that need help and you help them because you need to end the Timekeeper. He controls everyone on this planet and he has done it for far too long. Before you get to the Timekeeper, you have to kill 3 bosses. Each of these bosses controls a piece of the open world. The cool thing about it is that you can chase them in whatever order you want. If you want to change up the order of the boss killing missions once you make a new character, you can. All of the bosses have a pretty good motive, but this takes away the focus from the actual main villain, the Timekeeper. The focus on the side bosses is great, but by the time you finish them off, you kind of forget the Timekeeper is your end goal. The presence of the Timekeeper needs work. There are hours of gameplay where the Timekeeper is not even mentioned, even though the Timekeeper is a well-written antagonist. The lack of presence hurts the character, and this is disappointing because he's really good. He could have been great, but sadly he falls under just good because of lack of presence. It would have been a great idea to have one less boss to worry about, but more focus on the Timekeeper to expand his story.
What, we some kind of suicide squad?
Vault Hunters. You get to choose from 4 different Vault Hunters with very different personalities and sizes. You have Amon, Vex, Harlow, and Raph. Each one has 3 skill trees you can choose to make your builds as you level up. Max level is 50, so you spend 50 points on any skill tree. Each of these skill trees has 3 branches with different skills and elements. You don't have to stick to one branch, but there is a benefit to doing that because you unlock capstones if you do. Capstones are basically a way to change your ultimate, so technically there are 9 different ultimates per character. The amount of builds you can make is actually impressive. I started with Amon and made a punching build with the red tree, and a friend of mine played Amon and invested on the red tree but built around shields. This is just to show how you can play around with the skill trees to get a build that suits you. The builds change based on the character, the skill trees, and the weapons. As you get weapons, you start getting ideas to focus your build around certain weapons and manufacturers, and that's where the fun of build crafting starts. Thankfully, you can reset your trees whenever you want, but sadly, the game doesn't have loadouts. This seems like a missed opportunity to me because they made everything easier to be able to reset and make builds, but the most essential mechanic of loadout is not in the game. Loadouts would save people so much time build crafting. I don't really understand why this was not implemented. On the skill tree topic, you get a separate skill tree called specialization. Once you beat the main campaign, you unlock this skill tree and the points you can put on are infinite. Yes, you heard that right. Infinite. The skills increase stats little by little, making stuff like punching hit a bit harder as you level up. We're talking about a fraction of percentage, but it makes a difference once you reach a certain level. Technically, you can make any build overpower if you put the time and grind for the XP as long as you stay with one character. This skill tree is not shared to the other characters you make. This is great for people like me. I love playing every character, but I always end up sticking with the melee characters, even if they always suck.
Dead, whistling game. Now let the hostages go.
Typical Rafa.
The game implemented an open world with smaller open zones that worked surprisingly well with a few exceptions. The open world has 4 main big zones that are connected seamlessly to each other, and each of these zones has a main villain with their own story that you have to beat before you progress to the other zones. I feel like that open world idea was a great implementation in the franchise, and this being the first open world is actually impressive. It could be better, but it's not bad. Some spaces feel like they were made to be explored on a vehicle, and the enemy spawn points are scattered, leading to fewer enemies spawning into certain zones. This is normally not an issue. The game has moments where the enemy density is so great that the difficulty spikes depending on the character you use. The open world has a very good amount of environmental storytelling, leading to an echo pickup, giving you even more story to enjoy. There are a few issues I want to mention when it comes to the open world, and one of them is the save zones and the world getting locked again if you make another character. The reason this is an issue is that people normally finish the game with one character, make a perfected build, and move on to play another character. With a world as big as this one, and with the amount of backtracking and usage of vehicles, it could be a time saver being able to fast travel to main missions with your other characters. The world completion should be account wide instead of character wide to save the players the time. I am not playing Borderlands to drive around the open world. The other issue I have is the grapple points. There aren't enough points throughout the world. There are parts of the map that are so specific to get to that after you complete the map, it just becomes annoying getting around. It would be great if grapple points spawn as you free fast travel locations to make it easier to travel vertically. The worst thing about the open world is the Echo 4, the GPS system. The system works fine when it's guiding you to a main mission and some of the side missions, but the moment you want to farm a boss in a cave, instead of guiding you through the entrance of the cave, it tells you to juggernaut your way through the walls, which makes absolutely no sense. The other issue is when you place a point in any part of the map, it doesn't always guide you the right way. It normally just guides you wherever it wants. This is insanely annoying because you will be spending a lot of time trying to get to the side objectives, and the echo does not help at all. This is also the reason why more grapple points should be included once you clear the zones, so it could be easier getting around. The world is filled with collectibles and simple side quests that give you points for you to upgrade your backpack and inventory, and for you to have more bullets to a certain weapon. Most of these collectibles are fine. You pick them up and they give you lore about the world or the characters. My favorites are the Vault Hunter Echoes that give you more information about their past lives. There's some quests you have to protect the propaganda radio. This is simple and to the point. There's a quest that makes you collect 3 orbs to complete, mind-numbingly easy. And then there's the worst side quest I have ever done in any game. The side quest in question makes you pick up an item and bring it to the closest safe zone. While you have the item, you can't use your vehicle, and normally the safe zones are far as hell. There is absolutely nothing fun about this. On top of that, Claptrap is just talking nonsense in your ear. I normally love Claptrap. I do. But this was not a mission to have him talking. If the mission is boring, the least they can do is add interesting lore. What is even worse is that the world progression is not carried to other characters, which means you have to do this on every character you make to upgrade the inventory space. They have said they're monitoring the world progression, but as of right now, you have to clear the map in every character you have. With all of that being said, I am very excited to see how they will pack up more content in the open world, considering they have been adding locations and bosses for us to farm all over this map. They have added caves to locations you couldn't access before, and that shows that there is potential to have this map filled with even more content as events keep coming. I just hope the events are good and not like that last side quest that I spoke about.
Want to step outside? Settle this by street rules.
The game introduces mechanics that make the gameplay fast and engaging. One of the mechanics is the grappling hook, the second is the gliding, and the last one is the dash. The grappling hook and the gliding are implemented in a lot of boss fights to make them extremely engaging and in open world exploration as well. The shooting in the game feels nice. The movement is smooth and the dash makes the game feel faster. The most convenient feature though is the encore machine. Now, when you kill a boss, you can respawn them instantly by going to this machine and paying money. No more closing the game and opening it to respawn a boss. Even though the shooting feels amazing and the movement feels amazing, sadly, the melee is bad with 2 of the Vault Hunters that have skill trees centered around it. I know difficulty is subjective based on how much of a gamer you are, but this was a hard game when I first played it. Not only because I put it on hard, but also because I played as Amon, the weakest of all the Vault Hunters. On top of that, I went the melee route, which sucks early game. No matter how much experience Gearbox has making games, it seems impossible for them to make a reasonable strong melee mechanic. If it is not janky, it is underpowered. Rafa is the other character that has an ultimate that focuses on melee, and this is the most janky the game feels because most times the attacks miss the target or just don't reach. This makes the game so much more difficult for people that don't understand that melee in early game is not recommended. Speaking about the difficulty, after some consideration, there is almost no reason to play on the hardest difficulties except if you want more XP and or more money, but it does not increase the loot chances. Even in the end, the chances don't change. Hell, there is even a chance the percentages of legendary is lowered on higher difficulties, which makes no sense. If I decide to play a game on the hardest difficulty, it is to get more loot, not less. Speaking about loot, a looter shooter is all about it. It's all about the loot. The more you get, the higher the chances of you making a different build with what you got. Basically, the Pokemon of shooters. Gotta have them all. The weapons in the game vary from gray, green, blue, purple, and golden, having more damage or better perks as the rarity goes up. Gray being common and golden being legendary. You know which one should be better. Normally, the legendary weapons have crazy perks that other weapons can't get and make that weapon unique. The manufacturer mechanic is a pool of set perks that can drop in weapons. The higher the rarity of the weapon, the more manufacturer perks you can have. Some of these perks are extremely overpowered to the point you always want them in your weapons. Looking at you, Jacobs. And some perks are so bad you almost never want them in your weapons, obviously with a few exceptions. This will be a bit complicated for me to explain, but let's give it a shot. The game right now has 80 weapons. May not seem like a lot, but the perks that roll in these weapons is what makes the grind. Each purple weapon and most legendaries can roll with 4 perks. Each perk has a pool of 4 or 5 different perks. You do the math there. These perks are essential to make purple weapons be on par with legendary and make them even stronger in some occasions. This is great because it expands the pool of things you want to have. However, the pool of weapons seems small because the game focuses on a variety of parts in the weapon instead of different weapons overall. I felt that the weapons repeated a lot. The parts were always different on the same weapons, and this could be a complaint for people not paying attention to these parts. The weapons repeat, but the parts almost never did. A weapon with 4 parts that can change and each part has 4 or 5 different options is a dream come true for god roll grinders like me. This is only the weapons though. Then we have the shields that have 3 perks, grenades that can roll with 4 perks, and class mods that have a huge pool of combinations including skills from the skill trees, plus each character has 5 of them so far. On top of that, there is something called firmware. These are skills that can spawn on gear, not weapons, and give even more variety to the builds. One thing is undeniable, there is loot in this game. Sadly, there is no such thing as a cemented end game grind. There is no endless horde mode for you to turn your brain off and just farm until you get bored. There are drill sites that essentially spawn enemies and then a boss, but you have to constantly keep turning back to the entrance to respawn the waves. The end game consists of you looking for your god rolls and perfecting your characters for the future promised end game activities, not the ones we have right now.
Should go see if that guy's alright. Or carrying a bunch of cash.
Choosing a character and bringing them up to level 50 is a huge grind. The story will take you around level 25 to 30 if you focus on the story. This being said, the voice acting on the characters from level 1 to 50 is present. Every echolog is acted hilariously and sometimes seriously depending on the character and what the lore is trying to tell you. Normally the game is dark and serious during the main missions, but once you do the side missions, you get to the other side of that coin. All of these characters are so different and funny in their own way. Thankfully, not in a cringy way. Rafa with his accent making every interaction hilarious, Amon being too literal to the point that everything he says is funny, Harlow being a nerd and making everything awkward because she is too smart, and Vex constantly trying to sound cool just to fit in shows how different the characters are and how funny they are in their own way. This is highlighted when they're constantly interacting with the NPCs on the main missions and the side missions because your characters are constantly being represented in the game.
I'm Vex, and my whole deal is that your friend RJ just helped me break out of prison.
I am gonna say one thing, and I will not elaborate on it. The music in this game sucks. This is where the game becomes problematic. On computers, the game runs like trash. They have been fixing it slowly, but a game that looks like this should not need the latest GPUs. I played this game on the PS5 Pro, and the game was a mess at the beginning. This is surprising to me because Gearbox pushed the release date. The confidence they had was the reason why I thought the game was gonna run fine. There were so many things the game should have had at launch, but somehow they were missing, like the FOV slider on console, and there was a memory leak that made the game run worse the longer you played it. Honestly, I completely understand the people that refunded the game and the people that were furious about the situation. I am very forgiving of glitches in games, as long as they don't log me out of progress. But even I was furious about the memory leak. The other thing that made me furious was the menu. Nothing on the character inventory screen worked. So imagine me trying to switch a gun from another and pressing a dedicated button that didn't work, or waiting a few minutes for the weapons to load so I can continue making a build, Or my whole skill tree clearing itself every single time I went online. How did this get approved to launch early? Thankfully, as this review releases, they have fixed the game massively. They fixed the memory leak, they added FOV slider on console, the FPS doesn't drop at all, and they're fixing a few things in the game weekly. If I made this review when the game first launched, I wouldn't have recommended it to anyone. But a few months out, the devs have proven they're paying attention. Even though there are still issues with the menu, I recommend this game. This is a great game, a great looter shooter, and it has the potential to be greater if they keep managing the game as they're doing right now. I can only recommend the game on PS5, even if they have been on top of performances on every other console or computer. If you are looking for a good first person shooter with a good story, funny characters, generic open world, but insane amounts of loot, this is the perfect game for you.